Well, guys, I think it's safe to say that this film was definitely an upgrade from last June. Huh? Get it?
Tony!
Whoa! Who said that?
That pun was super lame. Don't tell another one again.
But puns are kind of my thing here on my channel. I tend to do them a whole lot.
Tell another pun, and I'll rip your intestines out. I'll eat your heart.
Okay, duly noted. Duly noted. But who are you?
We are your inner reviewer, and it's time for a new review. In fact, I'm feeling a rant. An extreme.
Whoa, wait. No, please. Look, I made a promise to my subscribers that I would try to stay positive here on this channel. I've been too negative the past few weeks, hell, the past few months. So if we're going to do this, we can only review good films.
From the way I see it, we can review whatever we want.
Hi everyone, Copy Tonio Catley II here, the internet's laziest movie nerd, and it's time for a review of the latest Sony Marvel project, Venom. Get a Venom. No more hit him. Venom. Gonna go and get him. Venom. Venom is yet another desperate attempt by Sony Pictures, their third in 6 years, to remain relevant in the ever-growing and changing superhero marketplace. It stars Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock / Venom, Michelle Williams as bland, forgettable love interest, Riz Ahmed as generic, preachy, over-the-top villain character, and Jenny Slate as wasted female character. It tells the story of Eddie Brock, an accomplished private investigator / journalist who decides to tackle generic villain guy, but in the process ends up losing everything that he held dear, his job, his house, and his fiance, and ends up a pathetic sack of shit. Months later, he's approached by wasted female character to investigate generic villain guy once more, but in the process gets infected by a symbiote that was being held by generic villain guy, and now the symbiote and him team up together to take down generic villain guy. Yeah, that's the plot. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this review, there's a fun fact I would like to share with you all that I discovered while watching the credits of this film. It took me completely by surprise. Did you know that the guy who directed this film was Ruben Fletcher? Yeah, the same guy that directed the great Zombieland film back in 2009, then followed that up with a pathetic excuse for a comedy starring Jesse Eisenberg and Aziz Ansari, then followed that piece of shit up with a pathetic excuse for a gangster film starring Josh Brolin and Sean Penn called Gangster Squad. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, where the hell has he been? Like, I feel like he had such high potential, but then after Zombieland, it's just been a... He used to be at the top of the food chain. Now, here he is like a bottom feeder, a director for hire. Like, people used to praise this guy a lot, and they saw so much potential in him, and look where he's at now. Jeez, how the mighty have fallen. But we're not here to talk about Ruben Fletcher's Fletchering career. Get it? No, that doesn't make any sense. We're here to talk about Venom. Now, much like everybody else, when I saw the trailer, the first trailer to Venom, it looked pretty good. It looked quite interesting. I like that they did not give away too much of what the story was going to be. They did not show Venom immediately, which was great. But then, in typical Sony fashion, they start showing too much of the film to the point where you feel like you kind of seen the entire film already, just condensed into a 3-minute trailer. And that was the case with the third trailer. In fact, it felt like that so much it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. In fact, the ending of that trailer, Jeremy Jahns called it. He called it. I'm not going to say what he called. I will link his reaction to the third trailer, and you can see what I'm referring to. But let's just say he called it. And I was very upset that he called it, but at the same time, I'm not surprised because typical Sony. And the concept of doing a Venom movie is a very interesting one. And if done under the right direction, in the right hands, it could be a fantastic superhero or even anti-hero film. But considering that it belongs to Sony, it does not give you a vote of confidence because of what they have been known to do with their properties, particularly their superhero properties. They don't do so well by them. You know, they floundered with the supposed new trilogy for The Amazing Spider-Man, which only made it to 2 films. And while I did initially like them, I recognize and acknowledge their flaws, and I do agree that they are not as good as I thought they were originally. Then there was Homecoming that came out last year, which was a decent try, but that was it. It was just trying too hard to be like Marvel Studios, and that was one of my biggest problems with that film, is that it didn't really have an identity. It was just like that one kid who ends up being a part of the popular kids group, and now he has to flaunt the fact that he's one of the popular kids. Hey, look at me, I'm part of the Avengers. Hey, we're part of the Marvel Studio. We're part of Marvel Studio. Look how cool we are. Love us. Love us, because now we're one of the popular kids. You have to love us. Love us. Love us. And so here we are with Venom. Venom. And it could have gone one of 2 ways. It could have been a very daring and interesting take on the superhero genre, especially since they were trying to do the whole anti-hero angle. So it could have been a very interesting spin on the superhero genre, something refreshing and new to see. Or it could have been by the numbers, typical type superhero film that we would have saw in the early to late 2000s done by Sony. And unfortunately for Venom's sake, it ends up being the latter and not the former. Now, does this mean that I despise this film? Absolutely not. In fact, there were a couple things I quite enjoyed about Venom. Venom. Yeah, I'm going to be doing that throughout the entire review whenever I say the word Venom. So, get used to it. There were some relatively decent action scenes sprinkled throughout the film. I won't go so far to say that they were great or memorable or hell, even all that thrilling to where you felt any tension in the action scene. But I think that's more because I'm so accustomed to how action scenes in superhero films are done that I kind of know what the outcome of the fight's going to be before the fight even begins. Hell, even before the movie even begins. I know what to expect with these superhero fight scenes. So there's not really much investment in the action. What I really care about, or what I really look forward to when I see action in a superhero film, is the spectacle of the action sequences. Is it executed well? Is it awe-inspiring? Is it visually stimulating? Is it fun and exciting to watch? And in the case of Venom, while there isn't a lot of spectacle when it comes to the action sequences, they are adequately made, just not all that remarkable. Like, I'm not going to say, hey, you know what action scene really stood out to me in 2018? That one fight scene in Venom. Yeah, that was one of the best fight scenes I saw in 2018. In fact, this might be the one time I do a comparison to this film in Upgrade, but I thought the action scene in Upgrade were far more fascinating and well executed than here in Venom. And that's because they had a unique style to their fight. Here it's generic action scene you would find in any given superhero film circa 2010 and onward. But I will admit, though, there are some action scenes in Venom that I found somewhat enjoyable. Some examples of these would be this one chase scene that happens in the middle of the film. Now, granted, this chase scene does overstay its welcome by dragging on longer than it needed to where the thrill of the chase is completely gone by its end. In fact, before its end, it's just like, Jesus, end this chase scene already. But there are bits and pieces in the chase scene that looked really cool and that I really enjoyed. There were also some really cool throwdowns with Venom, you know, when he's just like tearing through a bunch of no-name villains, biting off people's heads off and saying some ridiculous lines that did put a smile on my face. Like, he was the one bit of levity in this film that I quite enjoyed. I really enjoyed most of the scenes with Venom. And I will say this too, the relationship between Eddie Brock and Venom were really fun. I actually felt a bond between the two. Not like a deep bond, but their banter was really good. Their exchanges between each other, I got a kick out of. In fact, if it was just about Eddie and dealing with Venom, I would have loved it more. You know, none of this freaking love interest shit, none of this Jenny Slate shit. We don't leave those guys out of this. Just make it about Brock. Make it about Brock dealing with this symbiote, parasitic life form taking over his body, and they both have to live with each other. You know what? I'd rather just follow them than any other character because they weren't interesting at all. In fact, hell, just probably just get rid of Eddie too because Eddie's kind of a bore as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of all the good things this film has to offer. Some decent action here and there. Venom was a lot of fun to watch. He's the coolest character, the funnest character, the best character in the entire film. And his banter with Eddie was enjoyable. It was very entertaining. I could just watch a whole movie just Eddie dealing with Venom and his kind of behavior, his mentality, the way he sees the world, and his cravings to eat people's heads. I could just watch that movie. Instead, I got this movie, which was sorely lacking in a lot of memorable, entertaining things. I mean, starting with the story. The story's typical hero-type story that we've probably have seen a dozen or so times before, and it's just not all that engaging. I don't really care for the story in this film. I mean, it's about this journalist who gets the superpower and decides to take down this douchey, generic bad guy character who sniffs his own farts, basically. And it makes sense why he lives in San Francisco. I mean, this guy is so up his own ass throughout the entire film. He thinks so lowly of humans, but praises the symbiotes for some reason. And he goes on these diatribes about how mankind's destroying themselves. And Jesus, if there's one thing that's worse than a boring villain, it's a preachy, condescending, I think I'm better than you villain. And that's what this villain is. He thinks so highly of his own intellect, poorly of humans, and praises the enemy. What an asshole. You know, what a Benedict Arnold he was. But he's not even the worst character in the film. By far, the worst character was Michelle Williams' character, as she served nothing to the overall story or to any other character outside of Eddie Brock. And honestly, she's just superfluous to everything. You could have removed her and nothing truly would have changed. In fact, what you could have done was just combine that character with Jenny Slate's character to make Jenny Slate's character a bit more interesting. Maybe she did have a relationship with Eddie Brock, and then she started working with the bad guy. And kind of do like a Gwen Stacy kind of thing with her. Although, now that I think about it, that would just be ripping off what they already did. Let's scratch that idea. And she had no chemistry with both Tom Hardy and Eddie Brock. And the reason I state it like that is because I felt no connection between Michelle Williams or Tom Hardy in any of the scenes that they shared Thus, I felt no chemistry between these two characters. I mean, you might feel the love coming from Eddie Brock, but not from Michelle Williams' character. Even when they were in a relationship, I didn't buy it. I bought the relationship in Upgrade more than I bought the relationship here in Venom, Venom. And then there's Eddie Brock. And oh boy, where to begin with this one? Yeah, I just didn't care for this character. I just did not like him as the lead in this film. He wasn't all that empathetic or even that sympathetic of a character. And I know that's what they were trying to make him come off as, with the fact that he was this down on his luck guy who got everything taken away from him, and he's kind of a pathetic loser who has nothing going on with his life. You're supposed to go, oh, this poor guy was just trying to do the right thing, and then it ended up biting him in the ass. Oh, that's so sad, man. I hope he gets, back on his feet and things turn out well for him. I did not have that sort of emotion throughout the duration of this film. I felt nothing for him. Not only that, but I felt like the creators of the film, the writers, the directors, the producers, truly dropped the ball when it came to this character, as they could have took a very interesting direction with his character. And what I mean by that is, in the trailers, they were heavily hinting that they wanted to take a whole anti-hero approach with Venom, which makes a lot of sense because the character himself is an anti-hero. He's not a heroic figure. I mean, the guy bites people's heads off. It's really hard to be a hero when you just go and talk about disemboweling people. It's not very heroic. Like, this isn't like the Punisher who fights for justice in a vigilante style. This guy literally wants to eat humans. I mean, not quite heroic. And I was all for that. I was all for them taking the anti-hero approach, because we don't see a lot of anti-heroes in superhero films. So let's do it. Let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to let you know right off the bat, one of the things I didn't like about the story is that they don't take that route. They take the cliche hero route, where at first it seemed like they might have been an anti-hero, but no. They commit to being a full-fledged hero by the end. Come on, seriously with that shit. How many times have we done that? Can we not do that anymore? But really what hurt me the most is the fact that they did a good job at setting up Brock's fall from grace into maybe that anti-hero role. Because at the start of the film, he has this very opulent life with the good house, the good job, the good fiance. Things are looking great for him. Then it's all taken away from him in one fell swoop because he made a mistake of doing the right thing, fighting the good fight. And because he was doing the right thing and fighting the good fight, his life was completely fucked. And I thought, oh, that's great. That would make him so disillusioned to do the right thing from here on out. And they even touch on it where he encounters Jenny Slate's character. She asks him for help, and he's like, no, I'm done with that life. And I'm like, oh, okay. So they're setting up the whole thing of him being more accepting to be Venom. Venom's going to talk to him, and he's going to be like, I want to do all this. I want to do all this. And he's going to be like, you know what? Yeah, we should do all of that. Fuck everybody else. We're going to do what we want to do. But nope, that's not the angle they take. He then ends up just regressing back to what he was like at the beginning of the film, which sucks. It makes his character less interesting now. Had he just fully embraced the anti-hero like the trailers were saying he was going to do, I think I might have enjoyed this film a bit more, and I would have enjoyed his character a lot more, especially because, again, they did a good job at building up his descent into the mentality of an anti-hero who's so disillusioned about being a good guy, fighting the good fight. Why should I do that when my efforts do not pay off? I might as well just do whatever I want to do, what I feel like is the right thing, regardless of what other people think. Nope, they don't take that approach whatsoever. Lame. And while I did state that there were some good action scenes, that also means that there were a handful of duds, dead on arrival action scenes that weren't thrilling or interesting in the slightest, particularly the fight in the third act, the final fight that closes off this film, where Venom faces off against a bigger, stronger version of himself, which is just basically Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man 2 all over again, where the hero just fights a bigger, stronger, eviler version of himself. Lazy. But not only was the fight lazily written, but the execution of the action was poorly done. The shot was so tight that you can't really see who's hitting who, and it just felt like a CGI mess. You couldn't make out what was happening in this fight scene. Had they pulled the camera back a little bit and just have them actually duking it out, it might have been a more interesting fight scene to behold, but the way that they shot it, it just was unappealing, especially the locale that they fought in. It actually ends up to be on a cliche platform, and I'm like, oh God, we're having the hero and villain face off on a platform again? Gee, haven't seen that in a action film before. Shit, I almost forgot to mention another big issue I had with the film, and that was Venom's motivation. At first, he had a clear motivation, he had a clear goal, and it seemed like he was sticking to it. But then halfway through the film, he has a sudden change of heart, and now he doesn't want to do that plan. I'm not too familiar with the Venom lore, but that to me just sounded very unvenom-like, and it bothered me when I saw it, and it just rung so untrue. I didn't see Venom doing something like that ever. Ever. Maybe Eddie Brock, but not Venom. So when it comes down to it, Venom, know what hit him? Venom had a lot of potential to be something worthwhile. Not a game changer per se, but a fascinating, refreshing new path for the superhero genre to take by fully embracing the anti-hero direction. This could have been a worthwhile, entertaining, fascinating, and great anti-hero film had Sony Pictures not cop out and fall to their bad old practices of producing a dull, uninteresting, cookie-cutter, generic, by the numbers, boring superhero film that feels like a film that belongs in the early 2000s rather than the late 2010s. I mean, I get this notion that Sony still feels like this is 2007 and they could get away with shit like this, taking a property that everybody knows and loves and just half-assing the whole production, and they'll watch it anyway because it's the name recognition. That's all they care about. They don't care about quality. Well, guess what? The superhero genre is an ever-changing and ever-growing landscape, and you need to get with the times or you're going to be left behind if you haven't been already, which in this case, I feel like they have. The Spider-Man Homecoming might have been the little pick-me-up that they needed, and that was more of a boost by Marvel Studios, who's ahead of the pack. But Grandpa Sony is so far behind, and they're getting a bit senile in their old age, and they just can't seem to understand what's really reaching the kids these days. I'm feeling a strong, easily forgettable film. Transition. Did you give this movie a watch? What are your thoughts? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave a comment below if you're angry that I ripped off Anthony Fantano's style. Over by my head, you see links to some other videos made by the Black Critic Guy, as well as a link to subscribe to the channel. Black Critic Guy, Venom, forever.